It is time now for the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO. And today we have Mason City Mayor John Lee joining us once again for his second go around on the program. Did you ever do this when you were on the council, this program, maybe once or
I
twice?
think once or twice. The schedule didn't always, work for me. And now we've been able to work around my schedule. Before it was, Bill's schedule, obviously.
Right.
So no, I think I probably did it once or twice during the summer, but not very often. That's for sure.
Yeah, because I know former councilman, but now Mayor Mark Ebling over in Clear Lake. I gave him his first run through on Ask the Mayors. So that's the reason that popped into my mind because I was thinking you had been on the program at least once before. So.
Yeah, I had, but I can't. It's been a couple of years for
Right.
sure. I think it was during the summer too, as well.
You get 4 years now. So
here we go.
Well, obviously we've been battling winter weather. And of course, on Wednesday, we had blizzard warnings as this airs on Thursday. And I know City Administrator Aaron Burnett made the comment at Tuesday night's council meeting that the city crews, I think, have been doing as best a job as possible to fight their way through this winter weather the last couple of weeks.
Obviously, that's kind of those public safety things that we take pretty seriously, that, your duties of police, fire, and safe roads. And they have done a great job. And I think we just all forgot. It sounds ridiculous to say, but the last two winters, we've been pretty blessed. And we've had storms, obviously, but nothing like this. It's been a good reminder of where we live. But I think our street crews have done a good job for the most part. Alternative side, parking's done. We've obviously issued some tickets, but overall, I've heard that's been going well too. The residents have been really good about moving the cars, and I know it's an inconvenience for everybody, but it's something we got to do to try to keep our roads as clean as we can possibly do it in these times.
And alternate side parking, every once in a while people question it, but it seems to work, and B, you got to have some sort of plan.
You do. I mean, when I first came on in 2012, I think our plan was actually start November 15th and run until April 1st, and if we went 2 weeks without snow, you still moved cars. And so this was implemented. I think this works a lot better. I think it's a much better scenario. I know it's kind of prudent and we put out every form we can saying that, it's now in effect, but it's really up to the citizens to know when it is and see the weather. And we try to watch weather because we don't want to take it off for 2 days and put it back on. It's a difficult decision. It's Aaron Burnett makes that call. But overall, it is, you need something in plan in North Iowa, that's for sure.
Well, let's take a look at some of the things from Tuesday night's council meeting. The council approving the denial of liquor license applications for 2 convenience stores that previously have been denied when they applied last spring. And obviously, that's a thing that the city takes very seriously in dealing with those liquor licenses.
It does. And it's one of those things that Councilman Masson asked for the question. It's always weird. We're affirming a negative, and
right.
It's a weird thing to do, but that's the way the law is written. And so, you have to, it's difficult to say why always, but the situation arose from what our police forces said and the dealings with those issues before. And the state of Iowa talks about good standing, and the exact word is like good moral character, something like that. It's a weird wording, but when the police come forward and say, we just don't think we should issue them, we follow usually our police chief's suggestions.
And it's a case, though, that these businesses still can appeal to the state.
Absolutely. There's always an appeal. There's always an appeal process. You can go to the state. There's always other avenue they can take, and now it's up to them.
Council also approved creating a new position in the Development Services Department, a rental housing and code enforcement officer. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, for probably the last 5 or 6 years, Mason City, the city council has made blight a major goal. About 5 or 6 years ago, it went on the agenda as an official goal. Now it's not really on there, but every year we talk about it. And we've had 2 basically officers in there, and it's gotten to the point where with the more apartments that we've added, and still blight is a big part. Code enforcement in this town is something we try to take pretty seriously. We're not trying to be, over the burden, but the fact is we need properties to be at a certain level for safety reasons, for our citizens, for businesses, for the town, for everything. And we thought our department was doing a fantastic job, but they were getting overworked because by the time we get one white tagged or gone through the courts, 2 more may have filtered into that area. So we're just trying to stay afloat, and we felt having one more person on board to help enforce that was the direction of where the city wanted to go.
The council adopted the 2026 and 2027 policy agenda work plan. I know it's three things that the council's wanting to stress, and one of the first of those three, downtown assessment to evaluate beautification, bike and pedestrian friendliness, and other factors of the downtown area.
Yeah, we made, again, these are almost what we've been trying to do. That was actually officially adopted a year ago. What people don't quite understand, a lot of times we adopt a goal for 2 years. And this was just to reemphasize an expansion a little bit. We want to look at, I think most of us were pretty proud, not everybody obviously, but what the city has accomplished as businesses, Main Street, Mason City, Visit Mason City, the Chamber, the city, all of our partnerships, Friday Night Live, our streetscape, award-winning streetscape, what we've done with the, new Riverwalk. We want to see if we can expand that onto more Washington, Delaware. Can we make it more friendly for walkability for the, 6 blocks out, 8 blocks out? Can we expand what we've done on just federal to further in out? And one part of it is we're looking at kickouts or curb extensions. Instead of people walking across 4 lanes, basically a traffic or parking, that people feel secure parking downtown, walking downtown. And so we're just looking at all the possibilities and seeing what we can do.
One of the other segments, creating a mall revitalization plan that's financially sustainable. And obviously there's a community conversation that's also coming up to be part of that as well here, sponsored by the city and I believe the chamber and maybe other groups as well.
Anybody who wants a stake involved in this and the vision, it's really a great asset. I mean, I know right now could be an eyesore. Some people have told me liability. There's some people still want to see the old streetscape in there, whatever. But the fact is we have a building downtown that has great potential to become a really city center, a place that people gather. Placemaking is kind of what we're doing. What we're trying to do as a city and as a goal for me is the term I'm using a lot is a spectator to placemakers. How do we get more Mason Cityans involved in building a city that we can all be proud of? And it takes a lot of people to join in. And so we're going to do that and open it up for discussion. I think it's going to be run by the chamber, but the city's going to be involved there. And anybody who has an idea, come on down and be heard. And we're going to try to see if we can come to a consensus of what that's going to be.
And the third leg of that policy agenda, developing an owner-occupied housing incentive plan, which, obviously we've talked about this in the program throughout the years. Owner-occupied housing, something that kind of tough to get started here in this town.
So difficult in this town, but also in the state outside of suburb of Des Moines. Obviously, they're growing and they got a lot of homes being built, but 90 counties out of 99. This is a goal of all of theirs. And so how do we move that needle? And that is, again, it's always the answer. It's partnerships, it's community building, it's working together to come up with creative ways with the tools that are given to us by the state of Iowa, with TIF money, with incentives, creating a downtown that maybe the best thing in the world would be having investors to see downtown. And the term quite often is called infill. How can you start building new homes in the interior instead of just always on the outside? Because if you build, obviously we have a great thing going on with McKinnis and we just okayed the second reading down southwest of town, which is a great thing. New homes are going to be built down there, and that's what we need to do and work with them. But as a city, I would love to incentivize more building downtown. Take an old lot or two, put them together and build a new home, because all of our infrastructure is there. The sewer's there, the water lines are there, the roads are there. And so I would really love to do what we can to incentivize building infill, it's called. But again, I'm not going to shoo away any development even on the outside of Mason City.
Some other things as we're talking with John Lee, the Mason City Mayor, here on the Ask the Mayor program on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO. Last night, the council on final reading passed the new set of garbage fees that are connected to the new automated collection system that the city will be moving to here in the near future. And obviously, that's something that the citizens are just going to have to learn about too. And here in the next couple of months, they're going to be given some information on what they need to do.
They said last night, we'll start sending letters out around February 10th. That's the goal. But just what can they expect? And how does this work and practice? And there's going to be a learning curve for the citizens, but for the city, for the drivers, for the collection, for anybody and everybody. But we're going to a single arm, electronic arm that picks up your garbage. Everybody will be getting new garbage cans. There'll be 3 different sizes. Everybody will be given the middle one. And if you choose to go up or down, you can save a little bit of money going to the small one. It's at home right now. It's just my wife and I. We'll probably do that. We'll probably go down to a smaller one. We don't need probably the full size. But 10 years ago, when I had all 3 kids in the house,
you needed it.
We probably would have needed the large one. And so you'd pay a monthly fee for those 3 sizes, and you take them up the curb. And recycling will be every 2 weeks, but it'll be a much bigger canister, and it's single stream, it's called, where recycling will become much easier for everybody. And I know that's been a pain for a lot of people. What is picked up, what isn't picked up, what goes where, what do you bundle, what don't you bundle. And so we're hoping that becomes a lot easier.
And just throw it all in that big 96 gallon
blue bin, I think is blue.
And and that, like you say, that's been the biggest complaint of recycling in this community, that either there's different rules, or obviously the city at some point as well, those recyclables were just being taken to the landfill and being done because there was not an opportunity to take those recyclables to someplace. And this seems to be a better system with just, you can throw it in the bin and they'll be picked up every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think one misconception was that Mason City was doing the recycling.
Right.
And it's not. We find, a business who recycles, and we come up with an agreement with them. And when that company goes away, we have no ability to recycle. And we did take a lot of our refuse was still going directly to the garbage and to the landfill. And the reason that was, we opted not. Do you stop doing it to be front with everybody? But then what you get is people stop practicing that recycling. And we opted to continue. Plus, truthfully, then you got a little more garbage to throw away anyways. Instead of just all going in one, which probably would have happened, you actually got to throw away a little more. So that's the reason we did what we did. We started recycling again, and now I think this will be a much better process. But there will be a learning curve.
The council discussing rules of procedure at meetings last night. It was a thing that the council decided to table just to make sure there was some wording in there that was that made all the council people happy. And it's one of those things I think, as you mentioned, it's there. It was there originally, the rules of procedure. They just need to be revisited and discussed again by this council.
Yeah. So I became councilman in 2012. In 2008, they adopted some procedures. And when in 2014, back when, my early on, as Councilman Bookmeyer said, hey, we should probably revisit this. And we came up with a process that we all could live with and we appreciated. And those had just kind of slowly faded away. And somehow in the last 6 months, when I was running the election, I remember one of the councilmen, I don't know, as either Yashesky or Masson said, do we even have rules? I said, oh, we have them. And so I just decided as mayor that we should relook at them. And I tweaked a couple things. One was, it used to be one councilman could put anything on the agenda. Well, I said it should be 2, because you can't discuss anything without a second anyways. And so it just makes it smoother instead of having one thing on the agenda. We moved it. I suggested moving it from 5 down to 3 minutes, but extending. And then we went through 6-7 hour meetings, if you recall, once upon a time. And I looked around the state and I noticed a lot of cities limit it to 30 minutes without extension. You got to get there early, you sign up, you get 3 minutes. And then when 30 minutes is up, you're up. And I don't really like that, but I looked at, can we control it a little bit? Maybe that's not the right perfect wording, but and so I try to come up with a hybrid in there. So, a council can extend it for 10 hours if they want, if they want to have a meeting, but every 30 minutes, after an hour, every 30 minutes. And then we've always been 5 minutes, three. Right. We've always been as a council. And after the second round, you're supposed to vote for an extension. And I remember doing that. I remember many times as a council, we said, can we vote for an extension? For people to extend debate, we extend debate. But it is a way to prevent just back and forth between 2 councilmen, that it just becomes a debate or a fight. And it's a way to control that. People forget it's a business meeting. Right. And we're going to try to keep it a business meeting. Yes, it's held in public and people should have a voice. We're not taking away anybody's voice, but it is kind of updating those rules. And Councilman Latham wanted, if he brings up 3 or 4 staff to answer questions, he didn't want that to coming out of his 5 minutes.
Right.
That we kind of pause the clock and he gets the 5 minutes. And I think that was a very legitimate compromise. We didn't have the wording perfectly, so we tabled it, and we'll come back in 2 weeks.
And like you mentioned, yes, those council meetings and board of supervisors meetings and any public meetings, they are business meetings. You don't have to give public comment if you don't want. Iowa law says nothing about necessarily having public comment,
Right.
except for when there's obviously
public hearing.
There's have to have a public hearing. Obviously, that has to happen in those situations. But overall, you don't have to give the citizens opportunity to make comments on at the top of the meeting like you do now. And some people just don't realize that when they go to those business meetings.
Yeah, there are towns, when I was doing some research, there are towns who don't. There are towns where you have to sign up early. You have to whatever. And I think we've done a good job of balancing those two.
Yeah.
And I do want people to come up and talk. It's not that we're trying to prevent any of that. 3 minutes, I think, is a good compromise. 5 minutes, most people don't go 3 minutes anyways. And so I don't know, that's what we did, but it's up to the council now. I made a suggestion. It is their kind of meeting. I just, this is the agenda, and I did push it. I did make the changes, but whatever we come out of it, we come out of it.
One of the things that City Administrator Aaron Burnett talked about when he made his comments, his monthly report to the council, he was able to visit with some legislators here recently. And of course, the big thing going on at the State House right now, property tax reform bills. We saw the governor introduce hers last week as part of the condition of the state address. Senate Republicans threw theirs out there. House Republicans, as we're speaking, threw theirs out on Wednesday morning, and 3 different plans, it looks like. And the big thing is, obviously, how's this going to impact city business for the city of Mason City?
There's 3 different versions down there right now. And that is a good thing, I think, for cities, because they're going to have to compromise to get to something. And hopefully we can work with our representatives to find something that's conducive. And there are some things in those bills that are positive. There's in the Senate bill, I believe, there's a potential for an extra half-cent sales tax collection. To us, we make about $6 million a year right now on a penny sales tax. So a half a penny logically would be about $3 million back in the coffers. But the big thing right now is a lot of people want to hold it at 2% growth. And 2% to a town of Rockwell or us is vastly different than 2% growth to a town of Des Moines.
Right.
2% growth to those towns could be millions of dollars, and that gives them a lot of opportunity to do some extra. Or 2% growth to a Rockwell or Clear Lake, Mason City, North Springs, whatever, doesn't cover the cost of firefighter or firemen when we negotiate with them and trying to keep up with inflation. It's not even pay raises. We're just trying to keep up with inflation. 2% isn't enough to cover it. And so some people, is it a scare tactic by your city officials? We're going to have to cut, services. But we've been cut. The money that we've collected from the state has been years after years after years. And a lot of services we've cut. And right now there's a difference between effective and efficiency. A lot of times people say it's 2% cut will make more efficient government. It doesn't mean it's effective government. For example, we talked early at the top of the hour, our street crews. We cut down on men. We cut on the hours because of 2% growth. We're not getting to our roads at 4 a.m, 5 a.m like we used to. Our roads aren't clean as fast as they used to be because we don't have as many men as we do. We can't pay the overtime like we used to. We don't have the trucks that we used to. So it does trickle down. And after these years, we got to do right by the cities and allow us to do. And that's the thing, natural growth. Now, Kim Reynolds did give us a little caveat there. That's 2% extra growth. And that if you build a new house, that doesn't count against your growth. And so there is things in there that can benefit us, but we got to be on top of it. And Aaron Burnett does a really great job of that.
Of course, the governor's also called for cities and counties to try to be more efficient and cost savings wise, with maybe trying to collaborate even more than maybe cities and counties are doing currently. I mean, is that even, is that option been explored at all? Or is that even an option really that sounds feasible?
there's always options, and then the difference is options versus answers. And what sometimes is good for us isn't good for Clear Lake or vice versa. Right now I know the state's looking at the possible assessor, that we have a county assessor and we have a city assessor. We're one of 5 to 10 cities that have an assessor. And I know a lot of people say, oh, then let's get rid of that and save cost savings. But I would like to know in real practice the actual savings. We fought to have an assessor. Bookmeyer was still mayor. So in 12 or 13, we fought to get our assessor and we got it. And the reason is to have an expert on industrial, manufacturing, residential, retail. You need to have a different skill set than the county assessor whose best skill set is agriculture land, mostly agriculture, not a lot of industrial. I'm not saying they can't learn, but I think it behooves the city, and we're in a much better position to have somebody, because you got to understand Walmart and these huge corporations, they challenge your taxes every single year. They challenge them every single year. So we need to have somebody and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And so I want somebody really looking out for the citizens of Mason City and the business of Mason City. And if their taxes are too high, we want somebody who actually corrects it. But if they're not, we want somebody who defends it. And I think Tara does a fantastic job. And the other thing about county, you got to understand there's a board and every city gets a vote on it. So Rockwell would get the same amount of influence as Mason City. And so that's another reason.
Obviously the city's starting the budget process right now, and is the situation with not knowing what they're going to do at the state house with property taxes overshadowing at all what's going on with the city trying to plan next year's budget?
100%. It's always funny that budget's supposed to be set by the state by the end of January. I don't know if they've ever done it.
No, not my memory, at least lately. So
I think codified in law, they're supposed to have that done because they tell us all of our budgets have to be done by March. Well, it's hard to budget without knowing what's allowable growth or isn't allowable growth. So it makes it very difficult. So as a city, what we've always done, and this goes back to, Brent Trout was very good at it. Kevin was fantastic at it. I was like, we will then be very, very conservative when it comes to laying out our expenses. Just because we rather plan for the worst and hope for the best. And we've done a pretty good job of doing that. So because of that, we are sitting decent, but we don't know. And so we can't do some things that we probably would like to do without knowing the future. And it makes budgeting really difficult. Be like, budget for next year, but you don't know the money you're going to make for your own home. And it makes it very difficult to do.
One final thing before we let you go on today's program, something that I should have probably asked about during our last visit was the council that approved applying for a grant to help with some of the initial costs of the demolition of Mohawk Square. And of course, everything's still tied up in the courts, but city wants to kind of get ahead of the game once that does get settled in the court system. And, I think this is an opportunity for us to try to educate the public a little bit more on that building. Unfortunately, was not taken care of by the owners. And at this point, to even have it up to code, according to numbers from about 3 years ago, is $30+ million.
Code. We're not talking about getting it for a business rating.
That's housing or whatever. Yeah, they're up to just strict code. Right. $30 million.
I don't even know if we can, but I already mentioned to somebody, I said, I think, whoever is legal to go in there, I think we should go in there with a camera and really show the citizens of Mason City.
And if you do look at the story that I posted a couple of weeks ago when that was brought up, I do have some pictures from the court files that I've posted up there, so that you can go search for that at KGLOAM.com, because some of those pictures are even from 2023 or 2. I can't remember which one. The city went in there to do that, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I cannot even foresee how that building could ever come up to code again, because just the way the roof is. And
people look at a building, I look at a building, it looks so strong and it looks so beautiful. And it's so
on the outside,
it's so a major part of our history. Like, we would all love to save this, but there is no path forward. What I've equated to one person, it'd be like looking at a professional athlete who's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, is about to die because they're cancer riddled through the body. They look amazing. They look strong. They look perfect. But you look inside and you're like, oh, that's kind of what that building's in. It's just full of cancer. and we got to remedy it, and it's going to be expensive. And that's what's the tragedy of the whole thing. It's not that we're losing a piece of our fabric, historical fabric. It's also the cost in the city.
Anything else you want to add before we let you go on any topics?
No, I just really encourage everybody, anybody who's really interested, and I wish I had it in front of me. I don't want to say the wrong date, but the community meeting for the mall. And we need input, we need vision, and the biggest thing is that we need participation in whatever direction it goes. Is people to get out and be seen, and just really join this downtown. Hopefully, the synergy that's growing.
Mayor, we appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Bob.
Mayor John Lee here in Mason City. That's today's edition of the Ask the Mayor program here on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO.